Our alliance has never been stronger. Our mutual defense treaty is the bedrock of that. We share concerns about China's coercion in the South China Sea.
As tensions spike across the Indo-Pacific, one nation has rapidly become the center of gravity in the U.S.-China power struggle, the Philippines. With new bases opening, advanced weapons arriving, and alliances tightening like never before, Manila now stands at the front line of a geopolitical showdown that could shape the future of Asia and the world. What's unfolding isn't just military strategy. It's a race to secure territory, influence, and survival in one of the most contested regions on Earth. The Philippines is rapidly becoming one of the most important frontline states in the intensifying U.S.-China rivalry across the Indo-Pacific. As Washington moves more advanced military assets into the archipelago, situated squarely in the crucial first island chain that links Japan, Taiwan, and the Philippines, the country's strategic value has skyrocketed. Its proximity to the Luzon Strait and the Bashi Channel places Manila at the center of any future Taiwan contingency, sitting right along the maritime choke points China would need to exploit in the event of an invasion. Earlier this year, the Philippine military chief warned that if conflict erupts over Taiwan, the Philippines will inevitably be pulled into the fight. For nearly 80 years, Manila's foreign policy has been anchored in its long-standing alliance with the United States, a partnership forged in shared security interests and deep historical ties. Meanwhile, China has fully militarized multiple artificial islands in the South China Sea, arming them with anti-ship and anti-aircraft missiles, despite a 2016 ruling favoring the Philippines. Beijing insists these bases are defensive, claiming it has every right to build on what it considers its own territory. In turn, Manila, backed by Washington, maintains that it has the same right to fortify its own defenses. Geographically, the Philippines occupies one of the most valuable positions on the map, east of the South China Sea, through which nearly $4 trillion in global trade flows every year. It is also a major anchor of the first island chain, the U.S. military's frontline defense belt against Chinese expansion. As tensions escalate, the U.S.-Philippine Mutual Defense Treaty is proving more relevant than ever. The agreement gives U.S. forces expanded access to Philippine bases, including 4 new sites, solidifying Manila's role as a critical strategic partner should conflict break out over Taiwan or the South China Sea. This move comes as Washington seeks to reassert its influence in the region and rebuild alliances strained in previous years. Among America's Asian treaty allies, the Philippines and Japan sit closest to Taiwan. The northern Philippine island of Itbayat lies just 93 miles away, practically on Beijing's doorstep. Increased U.S. access to bases in northern Luzon ensures that the alliance will play a front-and-center role in regional deterrence and Northeast Asian security. What lies beneath the waterline also matters. The western edge of the South China Sea, where China turned reef outcrops into military fortresses, has deep underwater trenches ideal for stealth submarine operations. The U.S. Marine Corps is now shifting toward highly mobile units, capable of deploying to remote islands, like those in the Philippines, to launch missile strikes, conduct intelligence missions, or support broader operations in any conflict with China. Together with Japanese islands, the Philippine archipelago forms the backbone of this emerging strategy. Facing a far stronger China and unable to defend itself alone, the Philippines has leaned even closer to its security ally. The country's position within the U.S. defense architecture, from East Asia to the Western Pacific, makes it an indispensable partner. That reality was underscored when former President Joe Biden reaffirmed America's ironclad commitment to defending the Philippines, including in the South China Sea. This strengthened alliance significantly raises the cost for Beijing to challenge Philippine sovereignty. With U.S. weaponry, training, and cutting-edge capabilities now integrated into Manila's defenses, China must think twice before turning pressure into confrontation. The expanded U.S. presence in northern Philippines also boosts joint readiness should China attempt to forcibly unify Taiwan with the mainland. Ultimately, Beijing's assertiveness left Manila with one clear choice: reinforce its alliance with the United States to balance a rapidly growing threat. Today, both nations are doubling down on that treaty partnership, working hand in hand to enhance defense cooperation, improve interoperability, and maintain stability in one of the world's most contested regions. The Philippines is doubling down on its alliance with the United States, emphasizing how vital their partnership is for achieving shared security goals in the Indo-Pacific. Under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, EDCA, signed in 2014, U.S. forces can rotate through select Philippine bases for joint exercises, combined training, and disaster response missions. Manila understands just how important EDCA is to Washington's regional strategy, especially as both nations work to push back against China's widening aggression. For the Philippines, U.S. support is indispensable. American assistance fuels AFP modernization, boosts maritime capabilities, and helps counter the increasing harassment of Philippine ships and aircraft inside its own exclusive economic zone. Much of this progress is funded under the Pacific Deterrence Initiative, or PDI, a U.S. program designed to reinforce regional defenses, build critical infrastructure, and empower allies as China continues to assert itself across the Indo-Pacific. With China now considered the primary pacing threat, Washington has escalated investments to strengthen deterrence. For fiscal year 2024 alone, the Pentagon requested $9.1 billion for PDI. Both governments highlight that EDCA directly accelerates Philippine military modernization through upgraded infrastructure, expanded training with U.S. forces, and increased logistical support across key bases. These investments have grown even more urgent as tensions spike between Manila and Beijing, particularly around Second Thomas Shoal, where resupply missions to the Philippine Marine Outpost face constant Chinese interference. Beyond their mutual defense treaty, the Philippines depends heavily on the U.S. for military aid, modernization programs, intelligence sharing, and frequent joint training. For Washington, the alliance provides strategic access to bases in the First Island chain and a reliable partner for countering China's expansion, especially in any Taiwan-related contingency. During recent high-level meetings, leaders from both countries reaffirmed their commitment to strengthen and modernize the alliance, with Manila stressing that U.S. presence is essential for stability in the region. As China pushes to reshape Asia's geopolitical landscape, the United States faces one of its most serious strategic challenges, making dependable allies like the Philippines absolutely critical. Over the past decade, Washington has poured time and effort into strengthening diplomatic and military ties across the Indo-Pacific. And while those relationships have grown, they remain fragile if not backed by sustained commitment. For the Philippines, cooperation with the U.S. hasn't come easily. It's often been driven by sheer strategic necessity. Under President Marcos Jr., Manila expanded the number of EDCA sites from 5 to 9, giving U.S. forces broader access to key military locations across the archipelago. These additional sites open the door for deeper coordination, more joint training, and faster response times during regional crises. The two nations now conduct regular large-scale military exercises to sharpen interoperability. That cooperation reached a new level with the U.S. deployment of the Typhoon missile system to the Philippines, an asset Washington is considering keeping there long-term. Beijing, unsurprisingly, reacted with fury. China labeled the deployment a direct threat and doubled down by sending PLA Navy ships to shadow the Philippine Coast Guard near Bajo de Masinloc, escalating an already tense standoff. With territorial disputes intensifying, the full weight of U.S.-Philippine security cooperation, from the Mutual Defense Treaty to IDA to the massive Balikatan exercises, seems poised to outlast any shift in leadership on either side. Manila's location makes it one of Washington's most critical partners in countering China's growing influence across the Indo-Pacific. Two hotspots define the U.S.-China rivalry: the South China Sea and Taiwan. Positioning U.S. assets in the Philippines serves a dual purpose: deterring Chinese expansion and preparing for any potential crisis involving Taiwan. Given its geography, the Philippines could become a forward staging area or operational hub for U.S. forces in the event of a Taiwan conflict. This strategic reality makes it nearly impossible for Marcos Jr. to significantly alter his approach to the South China Sea. Manila may avoid openly declaring alignment with U.S. strategy, but its actions unmistakably support the First Island Chain strategy, an American framework that limits China's maritime freedom and reinforces regional defense. Among ASEAN nations, the Philippines was the first to feel the full force of China's military expansion in the South China Sea. With limited economic leverage and a still developing defense posture, much like many of its Indo-Pacific neighbors, international support is essential for maintaining peace and stability. For 70 years, the U.S. has been Manila's irreplaceable ally, helping preserve a free and open order across Southeast Asia and the wider Indo-Pacific. Their alliance, anchored by the 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty, has evolved to meet new threats. That treaty paved the way for the 1998 Visiting Forces Agreement and the 2014 Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement. 74 years later, the partnership remains as relevant as ever, adapting to the rapidly changing security landscape surrounding the Philippines. The Visiting Forces Agreement, or VFA, lays the legal groundwork that protects U.S. military personnel and Defense Department civilians while they're operating in the Philippines. Meanwhile, the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, better known as EDCA, gives U.S. forces rotational access to selected Philippine bases for joint training, security drills, and rapid response missions during disasters or humanitarian crises. EDCA has become one of the most critical pillars of the alliance, especially as China pushes deeper into the West Philippine Sea. The agreement opens the door for U.S. troops to train alongside Filipino forces, boost military readiness, and position vital equipment across the archipelago. When EDCA was first rolled out, both countries agreed on 5 strategic sites: Cesar Basa Air Base in Pampanga, Fort Magsaysay in Nueva Ecija, Lumbia Air Base in Cagayan de Oro, Antonio Bautista Air Base in Palawan, and Mactan Benito Ebuen Air Base in Cebu. Last year, 4 additional locations were added, dramatically expanding the alliance's footprint. These include the newly completed runway on Balabac Island in Palawan, Naval Base Camilo Ocias and Lalo Airport in Cagayan, and Camp Melchor de la Cruz in Isabela. Each new site strengthens the Philippines' defensive posture and enhances the U.S. ability to respond quickly across the region.